Bitcoin doesn't have an intrinsic value, and yet look where it is. So it is. Who knows? It's a wild thing, man. It's a wild thing.
Bitcoin didn't do a whole lot of good for Tesla this week. That wasn't great. Not great, Bob.
So
did you miss the combine?
I do.
All right, I'm done with this Bitcoin thing. Tell me. Let's talk about football for just a minute before we get out.
Hold on. I just want you to know this. That since Windhorse wrote this article, okay?
Yeah.
They, like $500 million got poured into this Top Shot.
$500 million.
It's beyond my comprehension. I feel like, listen, I'm private school educated. Thought I was slightly. It's beyond.
Smart kid. Yeah.
It's beyond
out of my depth.
It's beyond my. It is. I am out of my depth. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
They say that they're the new trading cards. So you have them. It's like, it's a new trading. That's what they're calling it. The new trading cards.
Normally on a Friday, I'm looking forward to wrapping up, kicking you guys out at 3:00, and going to the bar with Shook. That's where I'm at in Indy.
True.
You are. Yeah, because you stick around, Gibby. When do you come home?
Usually on Saturday morning.
Oh, you stay the extra night and then come home?
Yeah.
Now, do you do some work after we leave?
Like if there are certain players or certain people we need to talk to, or you know.
I remembered in the last couple of years that really Wednesday and by afternoon Thursday it was already starting to fall off.
Yes.
Last year was really last year was
Friday was a ghost town, you guys said.
You had players and coaches in the morning, or players and GMs, or coaches and GMs in the morning, and then you have players in the afternoon. You remember that, Zegura? Like last Friday, or that Friday we did the show, there was Radio Row was like half torn down.
It was a ghost town. Bishop had already hit skedaddled.
I was gone. I'm a trendsetter.
He stands it. He left on a high note.
I'm not here. I'm out. Yeah. So that's where it is. We're going to have a little fun on the program today, as you could probably imagine, including great moments. CBS Sports put together the greatest win for all 32 teams all time. We'll tell you who they selected for the Browns and also give you our greatest wins of 2020. ESPN also ranked the top 60 college quarterbacks of the 2000s. You know the guy who was number one. Is that justified? And at 2 o'clock, Z goes one-on-one with Bill Callahan. You'll get smarter in that one. I assure you of that. Off and running here on a Friday. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Obsessing over something like football can be a problem. If you're obsessing over gambling, it can be dangerous. Do something to take your mind off it. Find a hobby, perhaps. Want more tips like this? Go to keepitfunohio.com for great ways to keep gambling fun. CBSSports.com named the greatest win for all 32 NFL teams in their respective histories. Obviously, Tom Brady be in several of these, and it's easy to point out some of these great wins for some of these iconic franchises. For your, I didn't even look at this list. For your 49ers, is it the win over the Cowboys, Montana to Clark? Is that number one?
You would think it would have to be the catch. I could also see them. I haven't looked it over. Didn't look it over. I like to jump right into this, but it's either that, the catch, or I mean, is a 55-10 Super Bowl just demolition? Is that a great? Does that make it?
What if they go Steve Young, get
No.
the monkey off his back?
There's no chance. There's no chance.
I would think it would be the catch because that sets it off, right?
Right. It's so iconic. Yes, it is the catch.
Yeah.
That's what they've got for the.
So for us, they go the 1964 championship game, which is certainly fantastic. But the amount of people who actually watch that game or are aware of that game, fewer and fewer, unfortunately, by the year. I mean, that's been a long, long time ago. When you think about the great wins in Cleveland Browns history, certainly the last championship, and you understand that. But you feel like when you start doing greatest wins since the franchise has come back, I start with the win. I mean, you're not going to do any better than the win at Pittsburgh.
No,
that's the win.
I thought it needed
pretty
to be
easy,
potentially even in the discussion what it meant and all of that. I would say very much so, a huge one. By the way, the quote. They have a quote in here from the Niners after the Niners beat the Cowboys. Ed Too Tall Jones. Why don't we have more nicknames like that? Ed Too Tall Jones. What a great nickname.
Such a great. Yeah.
He said, told Montana after the game, quote, "You just beat America's team." Well, Montana replied, "You can sit at home with the rest of America and watch the Super Bowl." Wow. Did not see that coming. Can't believe I've never heard that story. Joe, it's just
Chesty
an absolute dagger. And then he went on to never lose a Super Bowl that he played in, so no big deal there. Wow.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, so ours are a little more old school, but I do think, right, if you're doing a sense you're back, definitely that game beating the Steelers would be the one. So our runner-up, they talked about the 1950 NFL championship, but they go through, the two NFL championships in the 50s and 60s. And at the end, the championship said was the first for then rookie wide receiver Paul Warfield, who later won 2 Super Bowls as a member of the Dolphins. So one of the cool things that we're going to be doing here to give you guys a little pay attention to the scores teaser is last year, remember after the draft with Dane Brugler, we did Browns breakdowns. And so we went through each prospect, watched their college film, and Dane kind of broke down what he saw, which people liked them, and they were really cool. We're going to do a 75th anniversary edition of the Browns breakdowns and cover some of the legends of the Browns with either players doing the analysis or even position coaches, current coaches on the team doing analysis of these legends. And I got to say, I would watch
them while they played here or them while they were Browns?
While they were Browns.
So, in other words, the idea is that like a current coach would take a look at Paul Warfield and break him down? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's exactly. In fact, not kind of. Exactly like that. That would be.
That's it.
Yeah, like, for example, it could be me and Chad O'Shea, and we could be watching Paul Warfield tape together, and he's breaking it down. And in preparation for that.
We have that archive video or film. I guess it would be film.
I think through the help of the benefit of speaking with those at NFL Films, we were able to procure such things.
Wow, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
And in doing my preparation, my homework for it, obviously I'm going to watch this before
you're prepared.
I do it. Paul Warfield, and I obviously he's great, he's gold jacket, and you've seen like plays here or there.
I tried talking to you about this like a year ago about Paul Warfield.
He was ahead of his time. Guy,
yes.
He invented taking the top off a defense. He looks like Tyreek Hill after the cat. He's unbelievable. He's never not open by like 5 yards. It's like he was just a different level of athlete than was on the field against him.
He's one of the great Ohio football players of all time. He is a Buckeye standout. He is a Brown standout. He could play receiver or defensive back.
Jeez.
And he's one of the coolest dudes ever. I've had a chance to interview him several times. He's one of the nicest, coolest dudes ever. And I remember, maybe you weren't in that day, but I remember sitting in the very seat you were sitting in. Actually, it was a day that we interviewed Dorse, so you would have had to have been there, but you just might not have been in the studio with me at the time. But I'm sitting in the building, and obviously I know Paul. Paul Warfield walks by, and it's a humble. You go, my God.
Yeah.
Paul Warfield just walked by, and I think it was it was on one of those days we were interviewing John Dorsey, and it was just, wow. You want to talk about the gravity of a building, of a franchise?
Yeah.
That's it. When you have those type of guys, and he's one of, we have so many.
Yeah,
we're in that era that there's so many greats.
Be on the lookout for that. I'll let you guys know when we start dropping those, but we're starting to get into the work of getting those to take place, et cetera. And it's pretty cool, and it is. There's a lot of greatness has worn this uniform, and hopefully we're on the upswing to bringing that back, you know. But Warfield was like, psh. My phone notes, I was like, crazy. I think he invented taking the top off the defense. Because, I mean, and the other thing that stands out watching his highlights, the insanity of the goalpost placement.
On the goal line, correct, at that time?
Just a little bit back from the goal line, because then they'd have a little lean forward, and then that would be on the goal line. Like, yeah, but it very much in the field of play, in the end zone.
In the field of play.
Two giant pulls.
It's amazing that it took that long to get that sorted out.
Yeah.
Maybe this would be a danger. Maybe we shouldn't have this in here.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I mean, him and Jim and Otto, and it's a crazy era, and so much, and really, one of the first really American sports dynasties. And certainly football ones, those runs in the 50s and everything that was accomplished at that time. So that'll be exciting. So if we can, I think we can agree pretty simply that the greatest win for this franchise since the return was the wild card win at Pittsburgh. What was the most fun win since this franchise came back? What's the one where you had the most pure joy? So just from your post-game synopsis, the one against Cincinnati was incredible from Baker's rookie year.
Yeah, I was going to say week 16. That was the celebration. That was like a celebration.
Yes, that was a celebration. The Jets Thursday nighter from Baker's rookie year was pretty remarkable. I know, but from a oh my goodness, just kind of what you felt with that one was oh my gosh, we got the quarterback. That's what that one was. Like that's what that one felt like.
This year's Cincinnati game was pretty great for me.
Pretty awesome.
That was a fun one. Cincinnati week 16, 2018 certainly would be one of them. I would say I think it was week 5 maybe of 2014. We put a beat down on the Steelers at home. It was the game where Alex Mack broke his leg. That was my first season with the Browns. And I think it was like a 31-7, just absolute annihilation of the Steelers. And I was like, yeah, this is a good time. The following season, 2015, I want to say maybe it was also a week 5-ish in that range when we went on the road to Baltimore and beat the Ravens in overtime. It was a game where Barnidge had the butt catch. Travis Coons hit a field goal in overtime, beat him. McCown threw for like 400 yards or something absurd in that game. That was a really fun one too. For a while, it was pretty lean in terms of the number of choices that I had at my disposal. But now that, happy days are here again, it's a lot of fun.
Just from this year, the Tennessee game was a lot of fun this year. Yeah. That was an awesome game. In terms of just kind of everything it meant. The Cowboys game was fun this year. At Dallas was fun. I'm just kind of going through these in terms of just fun games of, we got a squad here now.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of them, this season and then the second half of that Falcons game. You had a Nick Chubb 80-yard run in the second half of his rookie year. You had big-time touchdown passes. Even the Carolina game had some good moments in that. That whole stretch was pretty good. But I would say Dallas this year. Dallas.
Yeah, that's what I just mentioned. Dallas and Tennessee were the two that were really fun because they both were, you thought Dallas was a team that at that point, that was before Dak's injury, obviously. And then Tennessee was a team that you said, well, we want to be what they were last year. A team that makes a run, that comes out of nowhere, sort of. And then to just really bully them was fun.
And week 17, beating the Steelers to get into the playoffs was like an emotional, just Like it was.
The
You
problem
could
with-
feel it. You could feel it in the
You
building.
almost couldn't.
You had to
In the
be there.
moment, I felt like I couldn't even enjoy it because of how much pressure I felt to win it. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Like that was such a nervous game that you couldn't really enjoy it until it was done. You were so exhausted by the time you're like, okay, finally, it's done.
It's funny you say that because in my mind, when I think of that game and I think of the happy moment at that game it's when it hit 0-0-0. And Donovan with the all-time call, the only thing missing is all of you. I'm definitely misty-eyed at the double zeros, but you're right. It was way too stressful until that point. But once you got there, it was incredibly it was a great one. It was a great one.
Yeah, that was such a nervy one that it really was the relief of 0-0. Let's be very clear. There's nothing like the pure joy of the wild card game though.
Nothing.
It's first and seconds eighth. I mean, it's from the snap over Ben's head that set it off to just slumping them. It was so comprehensive and so much fun. I mean, that's clearly the greatest win. And I mean, how long you got to go back to find one that was that satisfying? You got to go back into the 80s, into the Bernie years to find something as satisfying as
ages
that one.
So one of the cool things about being back here is you get to now I'm actually can see people, and it's funny, I didn't even realize it didn't dawn on me until after this conversation, as I ran into Mike Prefer, who was, of course, the acting head coach for that game in Pittsburgh. And we talked about that moment. And, for me, how cool it was to be one of the couple thousand people on the planet that can say they were there. I got to see that live. And we talked about that game and what it meant to him. And I told him how cool I thought his post-game speech was. But I forgot I hadn't been that close in that kind of proximity to Mike Prefer probably since – maybe if we got to talk to him at the Combine, but certainly in a year, because
no question.
We were never allowed to be within 10 feet of them, even when we were out here at training camp. And once I was in the building, I couldn't even be in the same part of the building with him. And to see people in the cafe again.
Yeah, you're right.
We weren't even that.
The cafe's open now?
Oh, yeah, for everybody. Come one, come all. It's totally different. Obviously,
maybe Uncle Beau will get back in on Monday.
Today we had a nice shrimp taco with a mango jalapeno salsa, which was lovely.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We're back, baby.
We're back. We're the only thing missing is you, Beau.
Oh, yeah. Well, in due time.
You're not allowed to use that line. That's a foul. That's a fine.
What do you mean? I thought I'd already I acknowledged it earlier with total credits. And
there's only one person that gets to do that. You can't run.
I feel like Gibbe. I'm going to have to overrule. You on this. I don't think it's the same because the key here is proper homage was given.
Like literally 5 minutes ago. Were you tuned out? Were you
5 minutes ago, saying
I'm currently editing
one of the great
interview.
lines. One of the great lines of all time.
Yeah.
Was said out loud on this program. One of the great lines of all time when Jim Donovan said one of the great lines of all time, and so then you bring it back.
Right.
It's actually a Big B moment to be able to pay homage to the greatest broadcaster.
I think that's under review.
I think
it's under review.
Yeah.
He's a small MT.
Well,
you can
small
file the complaint.
multitasker.
You can file the complaint. Just no one's there.
You're a small
No one's
MT.
going to answer that. We'll get back to you on Monday.
We'll work on that. Listen,
you know what? We'll get back to you
I
3
think
days from now and say, you know what? It might have been our fault. It's all right.
Maybe in your 50s you'll be able to
Maybe the Big Ten officiating crew from last night's Ohio State game. Probably the same thing.
Jeez.
3 days from now.
That
Hey, you
was
know what?
football.
It's our fault. My bad.
Rock fight. All right, good job. ESPN.com ranked their 60 best college football quarterbacks of the 2000s. A couple of Browns make this list. We'll tell you who and how high they rank coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If your game plan for this season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/GoBrowns today. Today, Bill Connolly, who is great on college football, ranks the top 60 college quarterbacks of the 2000s. And what's fun, first of all, these lists are great. The timing, make no mistake, that no combine this week contributes both to this list and the Mel Kiper Jr. trades included mock that we saw yesterday. Because normally there would be all sorts of NFL content, and there is some with Wilson and Watson. We'll get to that in a second, but there's less. So Connolly puts this out, and I like Bill a lot. And it's top 60 quarterbacks of the 2000s, and so they have our guy number 1. Bill has our guy number 1, 6, and you can make an argument, and Bill does, that he is. We all know the regard with which I hold 6. But I can't have him ahead of Tebow or Deshaun Watson.
What about Vince Young?
And I think hold on. Deshaun Watson didn't win a Heisman, which is criminal, but is the most important college football player of the last 20 years because he ushered in Clemson.
Yep.
He beat Bama in a national championship game. He allows for Trevor Lawrence. He also changed the thinking of the dual-threat quarterback in the NFL. Him being drafted and having success allowed for a lot of the quarterback style that we saw later. So there's a lot of levels to his impact on the game. He won a national title, was a Heisman finalist twice. Tebow was a Heisman finalist 3 times, won 2 national titles, once where he was a main character, and another one where he was in a supporting role. The 2 greatest college football seasons individually of all time are held by Cam Newton and Joe Burrow.
Yep.
That's Cam Newton's 1 season at Auburn is the best single season anyone's ever had in college football, in my opinion. Baker, as a thrower and from a statistical accumulation and winning standpoint, he won the Heisman. I mean, he's there. He's in that conversation. The lack of a national championship and the lack of a national championship game would put him below those other guys in my view.
So let me ask you, because you are in this
They
case,
have one guy criminally rated criminally high. Go ahead.
I will defer to you.
Yeah. Let's just say he and I shared a step at Harry and Izzy.
Yeah, that's not definitely on top 10.
7th?
I couldn't agree with you anymore.
1 year?
But okay. In college football at their peak, okay?
Yeah.
And perhaps that's not how you think about it, but you take 2005 Vince Young. Like, to me, Cam Newton, Vince Young, Tebow are the top 3. Now, maybe that's because that was more of a time that I was more aware. They just seemed they were the whole program. And I guess you could say Baker was as well, but it didn't feel to me, and again, this is where you could tell me that I'm wrong. This is where I'm leaning on you. But like Baker's zenith as a college football player never felt to me like even Johnny Football's zenith.
I don't have a problem with that, and I don't think Baker would either. And I think the other thing that helps your argument is the 2 guys that followed 6 are also on the list.
One of them in the top 10 off of 1 season.
That's right. So that's the other thing with Kyler and Jay, because they have Jalen Hurts on this list. Bill has Jalen Hurts on this list as well. So that's the other part of it that I think certainly buoys your statement there, and one that I would agree with. The only thing with Vince didn't win a Heisman either, and it really wasn't until his junior year where he went nuts.
Those last 2
as a
years.
freshman and sophomore, it was rough. His junior year was crazy. But he didn't win the Heisman, and probably correctly didn't win the Heisman at the time that the Heisman was awarded, because that was Reggie Bush. And Reggie Bush was one of the 5 most exciting players in the history of college football and had one of the best years in the history of college football that year he won it. And that's why Reggie Bush won the Heisman that year. But Vince, and where does he have Vince? Got him in the top 5 or 6, doesn't he?
I think he's 2nd. No, 3rd. Cam 2nd, Vince Young 3rd, Tebow 4th, Joe Burrow 5th, Watson 6th, Murray 7th, Lamar Jackson 8th, Mariota 9th, RG
I think it's hard when you do this to not take into account their pro.
Totally. I feel like heavily influenced.
That's the hard
this
thing.
list.
Yeah, because you also have, like, he has Denard Robinson on this list, but he doesn't have, for example, from an Ohio State perspective, he doesn't have Braxton Miller on this list. Well, Braxton Miller was the Big Ten most valuable player twice. Okay? The guys who have done that are him and Drew Brees. So the idea that Denard Robinson somehow is a better college quarterback than Braxton Miller, J.T. Barrett, or Dwayne Haskins, that doesn't add up. That just doesn't add up. And so that's a little tricky. It's also like Terrell Pryor's not on this list.
Yep.
For Ohio State. Terrell Pryor played in 3 BCS games as a starter. BCS one national championship game, 3 BCS, well, not a national championship, 3 BCS games. He was the MVP of 2. He was the MVP of the Rose Bowl against Oregon. He was the MVP of the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas. And he's not on this list. And yet Andy Dalton's on the list at TCU, and it was fine, but he wasn't any sort of player of the year in the Big 12 or whatever, if you understand.
Sure.
So that I think doing something like this is very, very ambitious and tough, and I would definitely have – I think the other thing you're trying to do is you're trying to differentiate between a guy who – like how do you judge Cam Newton for one season versus 3 years of Baker or 4 years of Baker?
This is how I would do it. This is how I would do it, and this is the way that my rankings – that I would try to get these rankings. We're going to play a college football season, okay?
Yep.
And we are going to fantasy draft that, and the first pick for each college is going to be a quarterback. What is the order that these quarterbacks would be taken based solely on their college careers?
You'd have a hard time not taking Cam Newton number 1.
That's right. So that's how I'm
taking him number
I
1.
think you'd have Cam would be 1, Vince Young, Tebow would be those 3 to me would probably be your
Deshaun would be
first
way
3.
up. Deshaun Watson would be way up there. Yeah.
I thought you talk about criminally overrated. The fact that Jameis Winston's below like Bradford and Kellen Moore. I realize those guys won.
I don't think people.
But Jameis was unreal.
Dude, Jameis won. Florida State went undefeated, won the national championship his redshirt freshman year when he won the Heisman. Jameis Winston won the Heisman, won a national championship. His redshirt sophomore year, they were undefeated until the national semifinal when they lost to Oregon.
They won 27
That's
straight.
it. He lost one game at Florida State once.
How's he?
And he won the Heisman. And he's 16 behind Sam Bradford. He's behind Kyler Murray.
Kellen Moore.
That's impossible.
Like Colt. That's what I'm saying. That's the way that I would want to do it. And I think you would get some. I wish we could do this. You get some unbelievable matchups because a guy like Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, where would they go? Where would they go in the top 10? You know, RG3 at Baylor. RG3 at Baylor was pretty exciting.
RG3 at Baylor was unbelievable. And the other thing with the one that you just mentioned, the Burrow Lawrence had the better career. He's a 3-year starter at Clemson. They win a national title. He plays in 2 more. Burrow had the best single-season passing season in the history of college football.
Ever.
And he beat everybody. But the year before, he was fine. It wasn't until his redshirt senior year that he obliterated everything. But he wasn't somebody like Lawrence who, I mean, Joe didn't play at Ohio State. Had to transfer out. Lawrence was beat out a kid who took him to a national championship the year before and started from a freshman on.
Well, and how about the fact that you point out Cam and Tebow, so number 2 and number 4 on this, but in reality, I would say 1 and 3. Mm-hmm. Or you can even make a case, frankly, you can make a case Tebow's 2. You can make a case that Tebow's 1.
You can make Tebow's a 3-time Heisman finalist. He won 2 national titles and 1 where he was the centerpiece of it all. So, yeah, you could make a very easy argument that Tebow's number 1.
57 rushing touchdowns. 57 rushing touchdowns, 88 passing
Tebow.
touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Yeah, 10,000 passing yards, 3,000 rushing. So my point is, though, you had on one roster, you had Tebow and Cam was backing up. 2 years of his college career were nothing because he was behind Tebow.
Nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
In fact, you want to know two of the great what ifs in college football history. Urban Meyer is responsible for both of them. What if he would have played Cam Newton instead of Tim Tebow, who was a year behind Tebow? Like, what if Cam Newton got to run that offense with Percy Harvin and Aaron Hernandez and all of those guys? And what if he would have supplanted J.T. Barrett with Dwayne Haskins sooner? Or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's the number one pick in the draft. Couldn't get on the field. Third string at Ohio State. Like, think about those two instances. Pretty remarkable.
It is. And
Any way you slice it, though, our guy would be in the top 5 or 6 and definitely the top 10.
Definitely. Without question.
Definitely.
Without question.
He had a remarkable career. Remarkable career. Yeah. It's fun. Very fun.
Like, this is one that's kind of wild to me. So Baker was 131 and 30 in terms of touchdowns, interceptions. And I know he's at 9, so that's clearly a lot of respect. But Mariota, 105 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions, but he also ran for another 30. He was unbelievable.
He was the perfect trigger man for what they were doing.
Yep.
And it was Chip Kelly into Mark Helfrich, and it was the tempo.
Yep.
I mean, they ran plays in 7 seconds, and they were the first team to do that. Now a lot of teams do it, but they were the first one to do it. They had a lot of good quarterbacks run that system, but he was the best at it, and he was remarkable. And they thought he was bulletproof that year that they played Ohio State. But then when I saw their offensive line, I knew they had no chance to block Joey Bosa and those kids from Ohio State. They just couldn't block them. There's not much you can do. It's a fun list. There's a lot of really talented guys. And by the way, on a single season standpoint, Johnny's season at Texas A&M, I'm pretty sure it's 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. I think he had 1,000 yards or right near 1,000 yards rushing.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah, he was remarkable. He was remarkable at Texas A&M.
He also was, I think from a media standpoint or a hype standpoint, his star was bigger and brighter than anybody else's in college football in the 20 years. I mean, it was
the Wright Thompson piece in ESPN that came out that showed what all of the stuff with him in terms of his behaviors, that elevated him to just another level, that piece did.
Dude, I will tell you, when we drafted him, it was unlike anything else. I mean, I remember that night vividly. I remember what the circus was like when he came here that offseason. I remember it vividly. He came in, and Baker, obviously, from just a statistical standpoint, more accomplished. But
yeah,
he didn't. It wasn't the same at all. He was a Beatle. He was like a Beatle.
He was a Hollywood character, Johnny Football.
Yeah, John Football.
John Football. No, it was. Yeah. No, he certainly had that, and he was remarkable at Texas A&M. All right, coming up at the top of the hour, you will hear Nathan's exclusive one-on-one interview with our outstanding offensive line coach, Bill Callahan. Coming up in the second hour of the program, we'll go around the league, the latest on Watson and Wilson, and also go over offensive line as we look into the offseason there. You have that to look forward to, which is nice. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, and obviously we are very excited to be talking with the offensive line coach of your Cleveland Browns, Bill Callahan. And Coach, you, more than anybody in this building, has seen more of the NFL. You've experienced more of it. You've coached in more of it. And yet I'm pretty certain that when I say you haven't experienced a year like last year ever before, as you can sit back now and kind of reflect on all that went into that season and everything you experienced personally, this organization experience, the league experience. What was it like?
Well, Nate, this was a crazy year. And just from the onset of doing all the Zoom and getting familiarized with Zoom, I'd never even heard of Zoom before in my life, before the pandemic. And then trying to teach all the players the system on the Zoom, guys I'd never met, and trying to get them to buy into the system, it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. And then finally getting into training camp and going through all the different league procedures and changes that we had to go through there. And then in the midst of the season, they installed all the intensive protocols. So you were never around the players until they came to practice. So it reminded me a lot of my days of playing semi-pro football, where you come from home, you pull up to the park, you open up your car door, and you take your equipment out and you go play ball, So no, it was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. But I will say this, Coach Stefanski did a wonderful job with the players. I mean, he held their attention. His motivation for the team was outstanding. The players were great in the way that they responded and bonded together. So it culminated in a winning season, and I think that's all that counts.
No doubt, and a season that this city will not soon forget, because it meant so much. And I know you've been around the league, and even though you didn't get to feel a full First Energy Stadium, I know you got at the end of the year with 12,000, 6,000 earlier in the year. You got to feel what that meant to this city, and to have that win, the 12 wins, and to go to Pittsburgh and to beat them in the playoffs. And was that a pretty special thing for you, even though you've seen so many environments and cities? And I know they're all special, but
it really was. You can feel the vibe of the city, even though we didn't have the outpouring of fans at the game. It wasn't max capacity, but just in the little neighborhood that I live in, our neighborhood was crazy. They were really excited about the Browns' success, and they were rooting for the team all along. So you feel that. And then, of course, early in the season, we were out a little bit, and you could see how people, really follow the Browns. They love the Browns here. And I knew that coming in here. And but the experience was pretty special.
All right, and it most certainly is a Browns town. So you talked earlier about just some of the challenges in the offseason. Let's not forget, this was a team that put in a new offense, a new head coach, a new play caller, a new offensive line coach. And in your room, you had a kid who had only played right tackle coming in playing left tackle, starting for you day one, a new right tackle who's obviously a very good one, an all-pro in Jack Conklin. Wyatt Teller was really kind of inserting himself at that right guard position. And yet this line, it felt like from day one, gelled. I mean, is that one of the more stunning things to you when you look back at it, just how quickly you guys got to where you wanted? And I'm sure you're going to say, we have so much more to do, but was that kind of an amazing thing to you? And how'd that come to be?
Well, it's interesting. I kind of felt that during the course of the off season. And then we got into training camp. I really felt as though the players bought into the system and bought into the methodology of what we were trying to get done. I've got two really good assistants, and Scott Peters, who did a great job with our guys, and Ryan Cordell, was in the playoff games when we were ball. But those guys did a great job just complimenting what I was doing and really connecting with the players, and to assure that their techniques were exact and precise and really in accordance with what we wanted. But it's amazing, though, as you mentioned, how quick and how fast the players adapted, to the new techniques. I think they liked them. I think they had a lot of fun executing them, not only in practice, but more importantly in the game. And it was great to see it all come to fruition. So, again, I had a lot of great help, but I will say this, I have a lot of great players too. And to have them welcome us with open arms and be receptive, because as we all know, Nate, in our league, it's hard to come in and really change guys and get them to buy into a whole different standard of technical, different technicalities of the game. but they were open to it, and I was really amazed by that. I was kind of thrown back. So, and it's to their credit, and I really enjoyed this group in particular.
Was it helpful to have a veteran who had been so successful in the league and had been in Cleveland since 14, like Joel Bitonio and obviously J.C. Tretter, and kind of the cachet that they carry? Because Joel said something to me very interesting on his exit interview when I talked to him about you. And he said, I've been in the league a long time. I played next to Joe Thomas. I've had a lot of different offensive line coaches, which is, there was some turnover here. But he said, what Coach Callahan did that I'd never experienced, you had an answer for everything. He said, some coaches would say, well, if the guy's in the zero technique, but then he takes one step over, it's still the same. You had you had an answer, as he said, for every possible question, and gave them a technique for every situation. And he said, when that kind of blew his mind, and you knew, all right, this guy knows what's up. If I follow what he says, we're going to be all right. And if you have the veteran thinking that, I would imagine that really kind of can trickle down then to the younger guys and the new guys.
I think you're exactly right in so many ways. But my approach has been one that if I can inform the player and give them as many tools as possible for the things that they're going to encounter, it just makes them a better player. They can dip into that toolbox and take out what they need for those situations. I think the more that you show that you care about them, but then again, give them answers and solutions, it gives them confidence that they can make in-game adjustments. And I think that's the most important aspect. Can you make the critical adjustment during the course of a series? Can you find the solution, of what's giving you an issue or a problem, as you're mounting a 14-play drive? Because you're going to see the same type of attack from your opponent. So you got to know how to counter that. But these guys, they're so smart, and they've got plenty of experience as well. I just really believe, Nate, that if you can give them as much information as possible, keep them stimulated, keep them engaged, show them that there's a lot of ways to do things, and keep an open mind, I think you can get good results with any crew.
And you certainly did. And by the way, when you say any crew, we talk about, oh, yes, Jedrick and Joel and JC and Wyatt and Jack. But you didn't really have necessarily that five. It wasn't like it was that five week in and week out. Wyatt would miss some time. Jack, Hubbard's playing right tackle. Then he's playing right guard. Nick Harris, who I famously remember you telling me, I told that guy, you got to be ready at any moment, steps in after one snap or two snaps against the Giants and ends up going against nothing but first rounders and playing well. Kendall Lamb stepped in. Then we get into the playoffs, and we know the guys Blake Hance, who is that? He's out there. He's playing well. Dunn's playing well. Yeah. It's just, when you think about this group and next man up, they talk about it's a cliche, but boy, you had a lot of that in your room this year.
We did, and I'm really proud of these guys for stepping up the way they did. And we have a motto in our room that really there are no backups. If you're on the active roster, you're a starter, and you've got to prepare like a starter. You have to practice like a starter, because you don't know when your time is going to come. And it could become early in the season, midpoint in the season, or like we experienced, late in the season with a guy like Michael Dunn. So, we really spend more time with our developmental players, our practice squad players, our backups, more than anyone, okay? So that they're grooved, they're primed, and they're ready when that opportunity comes. So it's great to coach the Joe Pitonios and the J.C. Tretters of the world, but, at times, circumstantially, things are going to happen, and you've got to have the next guy ready. So, again, there are no backups, so to speak. You got to be ready for your time, and those guys did a great job. And I was happy, for Michael Dunn's success, Nick Harris, and those guys, Hub, and Kendall. But how about Blake Hance? I had him in Washington, and I told EB, let's get this guy in here. At least he knows, what's expected. He knows the system. He's a smart dude, and let's get him in, because he knows the drill. And I'm glad we had him late in the year.
How stunning was that for you to see him in that game at the end against the Steelers? I mean, you think about that week period is one of the craziest NFL stories you'll ever hear.
I know. And from my couch.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, I can't believe I missed the most two important games of the year. I'm sitting there looking at it from home. I can't believe I'm sitting there. I'm jumping off the couch, yelling at the television, But my wife thought I was crazy. She says, "Is this what you're really like?" Yeah, it's game day, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, you and I'm sure Coach have talked about it. You know, he's down in his basement and, you know, you're watching that playoff game and it couldn't have started any better, right? It legitimately, it couldn't have had a better start. And then it was going. And, you know, what was that kind of for you? I'd imagine that's the only time that you've ever experienced anything like that in your whole career.
I can't believe it. How about the first snap of the game? Once he snaps, it goes over that. You just get the feeling like, you know, things are going to go our way. You know, it's just that gut feeling that you have when a team makes such a critical error like that so early. You know, you kind of feel that, you know, they're a little bit, you know, they're not just right. But gosh, we have so much respect for that team down there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were on. You know, when you get on a roll, and things started to take place, and all of a sudden, you know, we put up some points. So it was a great win, no question about that.
So one of the things, you know, I've talked with you about this in the past. I got to talk with AVP after that game where he goes out and calls the game with Coach Stefanski not there, Chad O'Shea. You know, you guys have 4 guys who have all called plays in the NFL on this staff, and yourself included. And that, to me, is a remarkable thing. And what AVP and Coach O'Shea had shared with me was just the remarkable collaboration. And to have, you know, a first-year head coach say, let's all work. Let's put our minds together, and to see that this wasn't just a wide zone offense. You did all kinds of different. You're pulling guys, pin and pull. You're doing all kinds of stuff in this ground game. What was that like for you as a veteran? Was that a unique level of collaboration, especially with 4 guys on staff who had called plays in the league?
Yeah, you make a great point, and it all starts with Coach Stefanski. You know, Kevin has such a great demeanor and openness to coaching. He doesn't really mind if, you know, whatever play that we want to put in, if it's right for the players and right for the team, let's do it. You know, so I love his ability to attack defenses in a lot of different ways with a lot of different schemes. And I think that's what keeps people guessing. It keeps them off balance. And then, you know, you add in, you know, AVP's experience and Chad's experience. I mean, it just lends itself to really cohesive staff, a lot of good experience, but more importantly, you know, to be able to convey it all to the players and get it executed, that's the most important aspect. So it's pretty cool to be in that room, you know, with these guys and kind of bounce ideas off each other. It's really a great environment as a coach, you know, just to get in, you know, just talk ball and, hey, just throw ideas out there and nobody cares. There's no ego. And, you know, this idea is good. We don't like that one. This is not a really good idea. This is a great idea. You know, let's do this. Have you thought of that? Let's put this play on. It's really cool. It's just a really good atmosphere and good environment.
And I'm sure you're having fun, because rumor has it, in addition to doing, you know, your offensive line coaching duties, that a lot of what we see in the run game is you're in charge of kind of putting a lot of that stuff together, obviously with everybody else. But
yeah, we do it together. You know, Coach Phil Stump has really been a great, you know, great ad for me, you know, to bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
You know, Drew Petzing, you know, moved from the wide receivers to tight ends. So to get his input about what they did and how they did it in Minnesota was really interesting to me. And, you know, just everybody knows Scott Peters. We got T.C. McCartney, who was with Kyle Shanahan out in San Francisco. So when you merge all these ideas, you know, and you see the product, you know, have success, it is so awesome. So awesome. So, yeah, I'm jacked, man. I'm stoked. I can't wait to get going again this season.
How fun is it when you're putting together concepts, for a line as talented as yours and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who can make everything.
Yeah, everybody talks about the line, but the job that these 2 backs have done, oh my goodness gracious. Great backs make lines look better. I always contended that. You know, I've got no ego, trust me. And they can make guys miss. They can make you look really good. And so our job is just to get them into the second level and let them do their thing. And Coach Mitchell has done such a great job with these guys. The way that he coaches them, the way that he handles the position, the way that he exchanges the reps between those guys. And he just has a great feel for when to put Kareem in the game or bring him out and put Nick back in or let Nick roll for a while. You know, so he's played the position, so he understands that rhythm and he understands the backs really well. So, you know, that was great to see. And the unheralded guy in all this is Andy Janovich, who, you know, there's a fullback. You know, that's a dinosaur position in the NFL. So to watch him come in, you know, and get on linebackers and defensive ends That's pretty fun to see as well.
So Kevin Stefanski said at the end of the season, he said, look, if you're not evolving, you're stagnant. And so he always wants to be evolving. So I'll ask you this. What's the next step for your offensive line? What's the evolution you want to see from that group in 2021?
Yeah, great question, because this is the time of year where we delve into scheme, okay, and we have our scheme evaluation. So we're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And Kevin's given me the latitude to really kind of study independently, in terms of our protection techniques, with Scott Peters, and really go over everything and really try to rethink some things, and get better and be the best, because that's what this is all about, being the very best you can be every day. And having this time right now, it's so important, to really study, how you did things and why you did them, and if you're going to change them, or if you're going to emphasize them more, find new ways of doing what you did better. You don't want to screw up a good thing, right?
Right.
Well, you also want to grow and you want to expand, because the variable is different next year with the new schedule. So again, we're at the bottom of the mountain, so we're just starting that climb, Nate.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see you leading these guys like the Sherpa Callahan, taking these guys on the climb up the mountain. We can't thank you enough for the time. Always feel smarter. We always learn a lot when we get a chance to talk with you. So thanks for the time, and best of luck, and enjoy this off season and going through with that fine tooth comb, because I know that's the stuff that coaches love to do.
Absolutely. This will be a lot of fun this year. So yeah, we're excited about the new beginning again. And hopefully with some of the new CBA rules, maybe we can find a way to get these players back in here this spring to work.
That's right. Get them on the grass with you. Coach, thanks so much for the time. We'll be back with more Cleveland Browns Daily right after this.
Are you on the injured list? We can help get you back in the game. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO today for a free case review. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Let's go around the league. Gibby wants to know who gets traded first, Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. We went over the comments from Russell Wilson, which I thought it was amazing that we really want to stay here. But in case you want to trade us, here are 4 teams that Will locates trades for.
Yeah.
Chicago, the Saints, the Cowboys, and the Vegas Raiders. Deshaun, since we did a show yesterday, Deshaun Watson, the news came out, had met with the new coaching staff in Houston. A short meeting, reiterated, not for me.
Not playing.
Trade me. I'm done.
Yeah.
Not playing here. That's where we stand. All right, so who gets traded first? I think only one of these guys gets traded, period. And I think it'll be Deshaun Watson. I don't see how there's any way back from that.
Same. That it's again. Don't leave those voicemails. It's over with. You got it. You only know you love him when you let her go. Let him go. It's time. It's over. The relationship is suffered irreparable damages, and it is time to move on. There are irreconcilable differences.
I honestly, from Russell Wilson's perspective, I thought about this since, from time to time over the last 24 hours since we talked about, the teams that he mentioned. I don't see anything even plausible of the team. Dallas is the only one, and from a money standpoint, I don't know why Seattle would take on all of that money with Dak and all of that. Dak would have to be involved. There's no other scenario. I think it's weird that, if Russell, if you want to get traded, the Jets and the Dolphins could put together similar packages like they're putting together for Deshaun Watson if they wanted to. But of the teams he mentioned, there's nothing that any of those teams could put together other than the Cowboys, sort of, that I think if you're Seattle would be anywhere intriguing at all.
What about Russ? Russ said did Russ say he would play? Dallas, New
Orleans, Chicago, Vegas.
All right, so Russ to Dallas, Dak to Houston, Deshaun Watson to Seattle. 3-team trade. Get them all happy. Why not?
I mean, can that work?
They all got to be – I would imagine they're all in at least a similar contract space.
I feel like that's about as big a win as Seattle could – I would do that. You'd do that in a second if you're Seattle. You'd take Deshaun Watson over Russell Wilson anyway.
The only question is Houston and Seattle, the dead money. And Dallas not – Dallas, they're not paying Dak anything. So I don't know if that plays into the trade from a factor.
Yeah, Houston has no – you'd have to sign Dak first and then trade him.
It'd be a sign and trade, of course, yeah.
Are you
right.
picking up
so
that
then
tab,
does Houston want to pay $40 million for Dak Prescott?
Here's what you got. $39 a year. Russ is $35 a year. This is, full contract. Let me do 20. What do we want? 2021 number? All right, 2021 number. Yep. I'm pulling it up now. 2021 number. Russ is 32. Deshaun Watson says it's 16. Is that possible? 16. And then Dak would be 30 if you'd have to sign him to a long-term deal. Is that right? That's what it says.
I think the franchise thing with him is 37, isn't it, for Dak?
Watson's cap number this year is 15.
The long-term deal would probably be 40.
Watson's numbers go to 40 and 22, 42 and 23, 37 and 24, 32 and 25. So his numbers really balloon up. The dead cap money, if you were to trade him now, it looks like it's 51 or 60 million. But, it feels to me like the only way you make that work is if you play that quarterback carousel, right? Russ goes to Dallas. Dak ends up in.
I just don't know why Houston would get into that. I don't know why Houston would want to be a part of that.
It's not like Dak Prescott's he's no slouch.
Dak Prescott, I have somebody better than Dak Prescott, and I went 4-12. So that doesn't help me in any way. If I'm Houston, I'm taking 2 phone calls. One from Miami and one from New York, and I'm saying make your best offer. I want all the ones. I want a young QB, and I want a defensive player. Give me all of it. Give me your best offer. Those are the only 2. They're the only 2. And from Dak's perspective, from Russell Wilson's perspective, the only team that you could do something with would be Dallas, but it would be Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and a 1. You're not doing Dak for Russell Wilson.
No. Not as Seattle. You're certainly not.
You know?
Right.
No. So I think Russell Wilson's list is completely – I think it's almost impossible to manifest. Like, you want to go to the Saints without Michael Thomas?
No. Well, depending on if –
For what?
Like, if he's becoming –
and who else is involved?
I would rather him not be there.
Right. Who else is going to be involved in any deal with the Saints?
Yeah.
If you go to you're going to go to Chicago? That's a tough place to play, man. On that lake, you're going to go to Chicago and throw to who? Who's going to be involved in that?
Not
deal?
Allen Robinson.
You're going to end up with a whole new coaching staff and GM potentially in a year.
Yeah.
Right. In a franchise that hasn't offensively been consistent in a long time. I mean, Vegas. So for Vegas, it would take Carr, Jacobs, probably Abram. I just don't understand. I just don't think there's anything realistic at all for Russell Wilson of the teams he mentioned. If he wants to be traded, I think Miami could offer Seattle the most. Miami and the Jets would be the two teams that could offer the most. And they're the same two teams, and they can offer those deals and even better deals for Deshaun.
Yeah, that to me is the part that is so – that's why it's great to have this empowerment. It's great to try to determine your future, but where can you do it and actually land yourself in a better situation as a veteran quarterback? It's hard.
For Russell, you can't. I don't think you can get in a better situation than Russell Wilson's in Seattle of the teams he mentioned. Not without taking the knees out from those teams.
Right. And listen, the Rams are clearly trying to do that with, knowing that they're mortgaging tomorrow for today. But that's such a short-term thing. Well,
and the other thing with the Rams situation, you're right. Not only do that, so they got Stafford for 4 years, basically, is what you're looking at. You feel like you got to win the NFC West at least twice. You got to make the playoffs 3 times. You got to get to an NFC Championship game in order to justify it.
Of course.
And Goff got you to a Super Bowl. So and you gave up Goff 2 1s and a 2.
And you beat Seattle on the road in the playoffs this year with Goff.
Right. Yeah. So if that's the give up for Goff or for Stafford, and Russell Wilson's in a higher regard than Stafford, who the heck can put that together?
That's what I'm
type
saying.
Of deal together.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's nobody.
It's wild. The thing, and did you see McVay today? As we go around the league, McVay kind of doing his, I would call it damage control. Which is, I could have done a better job.
No,
for
I didn't.
Jared,
What did he say?
And there are a lot of things that I could have done better as a coach, and I could have been a better coach for Jared Goff. Because let's not forget, you loved this guy.
Seems a little hollow.
You gave this guy a long-term deal, and then you basically threw him under the bus and then threw him to shift him out of town overnight. You're going to bench him because you got enamored 1 week with John Wolford, who could run around a little bit. You benched him. And then he came in as a pro.
Incredible.
And beats the Seahawks on the road. You can say they didn't win because of him. They won because they're a great defense. That's fine. He played quarterback, and you won with him.
Yeah.
And to just cast him aside.
That's a situation where, it's almost like, I love you so much, never mind, we're done. That's the way that happened. That dissolved so quickly.
It's, I love you so much. Everything's great. I can't stand you. We're done. And then I'm going to say, I could have been a better boyfriend. I probably could have been a better boyfriend.
I could have done better.
Could have done better.
McVay would have been terrible on The Bachelor with this type of performance. It's so hateable.
Very much
so. Yeah, there just aren't that many deals. There aren't that many deals out there, and the standard that Stafford's going to have to play to in order to justify that is really high. It's really high because it's a lot to give up when you don't have first-round picks. It's hard. It's hard to rebuild, and that's the problem for Houston. And I saw the Hoff tweet this morning where he goes, you guys are missing the point on Deshaun Watson. It's that he's looking down and saying there's no way for them to improve this team in the next 4 or 5 years with me on it.
Yep. So,
and by the time this contract is over, at that point we might be able to turn a corner, but I'm not going to spend the next 4 or 5 years of my life doing that.
Out. Nope. Not doing it. Not doing it. And, PFF just tweeted out a thing, hypothetical scenario. Russell Wilson's traded the Bears, and then the Bears re-sign Allen Robinson, which they would have to do. They'd have to franchise him and see what they could do as Senior Swag strolls on out of here. He's got like a over-the-shoulder.
Give it to us. Give the people what they want.
Indiana Jones satchel, He's got a nice.
Of course he does.
He's got a nice satchel. He's got that green jacket, some nice brown boots. Just dapper and full of delicious fish fry. Floating.
There's no doubt, of course. There's no doubt that if he's probably got a bullwhip in there. I bet you that he's got some sort of. I think that's in play. I bet that there's some sort of a flask situation in case things get rough.
It's possible, but the depth of the leather, it is such a rich brown on his satchel that it's a striking.
Gosh.
It's a striking satchel.
There's not a thing you got to remember with Senior Swag that there's not a detail that is not that is missed.
Right. There's
not a detail.
Not overlooking things.
It's all sorted out. Everything you have to coordinate, and he does. He's the best.
Yeah, a little coordination.
That's right. Absolutely. All right, coming up next, we continue our Cleveland Browns daily positional breakdown on the offensive line. It is a sturdy group, and the good news is most of it's coming back. You have that to look forward to. It's coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, friends, be sure to catch the latest edition of the best podcast available, presented by Key Private Bank. It's out today wherever you get your podcasts or by going to youtube.com/Browns. CBS Sports Draft guru Ryan Wilson stops by to talk about the defensive options that could be available for the Browns at pick number 26. Last year at this time, coming out of the combine, at this point, it was very obvious you're taking an offensive tackle. And boy, did Jed Wills do his job and do it at a high level. And it was part of an offseason where addressing the offensive line, and we had Bill Callahan on, that was a big part of it. But certainly Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills were the other parts of it. And now you look back on this 2020 offensive line, and you look ahead to what is to come, Z, and you can't do anything but smile.
Yeah, you got to be very happy. This is a place that you feel very, very good. Jedrick Wills, 17th best pass-blocking tackle, right and left in the NFL as a rookie, and he's only going to get better with time. Bitonio, Pro Bowler for the third straight season, second-team All-Pro, number one pass-blocking guard at Pro Football Focus, 6th overall. J.C. Tretter, the most underrated guy in the league, number one pass-blocking center at Pro Football Focus, number 4 overall, like an extra coach. He's a total stud. He deserves to be All-Pro. He deserves to be in Pro Bowls. He's not.
I
He's
don't
the president.
understand that.
I don't get it either. He's like Rodney Dangerfield. He's the Rodney Dangerfield of our offensive line. I
No
get no
respect.
respect.
Yep, none. It's crazy.
Right guard Wyatt Teller, second-team All-Pro. Highest graded offensive lineman this year, Pro Football Focus, period. Jack Conklin, right tackle, first-team All-Pro. Your key backups, Hub, he will be back. Made starts at tackle and guard before suffering his season-ending injury against the Giants. An important swing backup with 48 career starts in the NFL. Kendall Lamb, he is a free agent. The Browns do want to retain his services if they can come to an agreement on the price tag. He's a guy who can play both tackle positions, played well when called upon this year, 27 career starts, and he caught a touchdown in a highlight against Tennessee as an eligible receiver this year. And then Nick Harris, the 5th-round pick in this year's draft, probably the future at center, but filled in at guard very well against the Giants in that big Sunday Night Football win. Made one start this year as well against the Jets. That one was a little rougher, ended up leaving with an injury that cost him the rest of the season. Other offensive linemen in the mix, and there are a lot of them. Drew Forbes, he's back after opting out, and I can tell you that the organization hopes that he comes back and can make an impact. Colby Gossett was a guy that they were talking about a ton leading into the season before he opted out as an interior offensive lineman, and he is back. Michael Dunn, the hero of the playoff wild card win, who started for Joel Bitonio, played flawlessly against Cam Hayward and the Steelers. He's back. Blake Hance, another playoff hero. He will be back.
Yeah.
Anthony Fabiano joined the team late in the year. He was active for the playoff run, a backup center. They had Javon Patterson, a center on the practice squad, and then a couple of young tackles. Alex Taylor, who spent 2020 on the practice squad, a former basketball player that they like a lot from an athletic profile standpoint, somebody who has a chance, I think, that they hope they can develop into a backup tackle and then maybe a starter down the road. And then Drake Dorbeck, who's back after opting out in 2020 at tackle as well. But a lot of good guys on the interior. Where we were wondering what's the interior backup situation? You're loaded now. Hubbard can play in there. Harris, Forbes, Gossett, Dunn, Hance, very strong in that group for the Browns. Backup tackle, I think Chris Hubbard's going to be your first one, but behind him, Lamb, or draft. How that ends up shaking out, that's really the only question that you have. Backup tackles.
It's a remarkable group.
It's a great
group. It is so comprehensive.
Yeah.
There are no holes. They are so expertly coached. We've done this with every one of the position groups, and certainly running back, you say, is this position group the strongest of any in the team? It's hard to argue that it could be that when you say who our running backs are, this is right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. I don't know which one's better. They're both great. We're lucky, but it's right there.
It's one of the best units in the league. As Brian Baldinger called them the union, and we heard Bill Callahan earlier. He said, "Look, these guys make me feel better about myself. These are the guys that when those running backs are so good, that's what makes a line look better." And I think it all works together. I think it's a combination of a great line, great running backs, great system, and what was cool is that Bill Callahan was talking about just the collaboration, and I thought that was one of the coolest parts of the interview. And we've heard this from other people, which is why I wanted to press him on it. The collaboration working in that offensive room, that he's throwing out ideas, Stump's throwing out ideas, Chad O'Shea's throwing out ideas, AVP, Kevin Stefanski, and you get all these guys who have had a lot of success in the league and who understand the game, throwing around ideas. It just makes everybody smarter. And he said that was those meetings going through, and Bill Callahan, he obviously is very modest, but he was the one who would ultimately put together, in a collaborative way, obviously, but put together the run game attack for each week and each opponent. He's loving it. So fun. And, he said it says so much about Kevin Stefanski as a first-year head coach to give, and accept that kind of input and that kind of collaboration. That's the ultimate sign of confidence, right? Is that I'm totally comfortable. Let's just get better. Let's just get better. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But this offensive line room and the coaching, and Bill Callahan went out of his way, and a lot of the players have too talked about his assistant offensive line coach Scott Peters and some of the techniques that he showed them to improve their functional strength and their ability to impose their will on others has been tremendous. But yeah, this is a great room, great in the present, set up well for the future, as well coached as any group in the league, professional. I mean, you're talking about guys. Conklin's a multiple-time All-Pro now. Bitonio All-Pro. Teller All-Pro. JC should be. Jed on his way. I mean, it's as good a starting five as there is in the league.
Yeah, and the depth when called upon was excellent too.
Yeah.
So you asked the question, I guess to me, like, of these guys, who can make the final squad is the conversation. You don't need to add anything to this. It's just a matter of, you got two guys coming back that are essentially treated as free agents that you like, in Forbes and Gossett.
Yep.
So you got those guys you got to deal with, but I don't sense that there would be any addition to this in free agency or the draft unless somebody just fell in your lap that you loved in the draft.
Correct. And really, as I said, right now it's, who's that second tackle? That's kind of what is
the second backup tackle.
Yeah, that's where we're at. That's
a pretty good spot to be in.
It's a great spot to be in. It's a great spot. You know who your starters are going in. And you think about this year and the lack of the offseason, et cetera, and the fact that you were able to go in and have, the success that you did. Let's not forget, JC wasn't a part of the offseason at all. He missed the entirety of training camp, comes in and plays at this high of level. Again, no respect for him. He absolute stud.
Well, and Gibby brings up a great point here that this starting offensive line only played together in 8 games last season, which you forget. And as you were mentioning Hance and Dunn, and then you bring an immediate smile to my face because you remember the circumstances that those guys were put in. But imagine if these guys actually get to play together for a full season.
It's going to be great, a full off season, and just adding new wrinkles, improving things. And that's what Bill Callahan said. We're going to go with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to get this scheme better. We're going to get our techniques better. We're just going to continue to evolve. And I'm thrilled to see it. Thrilled.
Yeah, it's a fun group. And I think probably the two things that jump out to me most, because there was an expectation of Conklin, Bitonio, and Treader, and they lived up to all of it. But Wyatt Teller becoming just a road grader who just took joy in plowing people was so much fun. It was so much fun to watch. When we would do the film study with the Hoff and we would see him just roll people over early in the season before he got banged up, that was just awesome.
Yep.
And then legitimately worried about Jedrick Wills in camp. And Hoff saying, boy, it took me a while. It's going to be right. This takes a while at left tackle. This is a guy who went from right tackle to left tackle.
Hadn't even played.
Folks, it was rough in camp. It was rough. And there was not a single time this season when watching us play where we thought, Jedrick's just not getting it done. I can't remember a play, a series, nothing. Not once. That's a remarkable thing to do. To go from the right to the left, go from trying to figure it out and swim in the first few weeks of camp to what he did.
And it's
incredible.
only going to get better. That arrow is pointing up with a very rapid ascension.
Yeah. No, it's a really, really fun group. This was fun to go through this. And I think as you put a ribbon on the offense, the thing that you realize is not much needs to be done.
We're running it back. For the most part, we are running it back. There's some questions at wide receiver as to what that looks like. But for the most part, we got a great group. We're running it back. We like it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. Yep. Now, we'll do the defense next week.
That's right.
And that will be a different conversation to be had, my friends, certainly. Coming up next, so much. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. right, let's just be very clear. We talk about things and we talk about youth and all of this stuff. In the break, and by the way, if you're ever wondering who the most interesting man is, it's Gibbe.
Gibbe.
In the break,
100%. That's
Gibbe
why
just
Ed
drops
Gibbe would
on
get
us.
followed by The Rock.
Ask Gibbe would be followed by The Rock in a second. Ask Gibbe just dropped on us that he not only was on an AAU team that beat Kevin Garnett in the Elite Eight of the National AAU Championship, but that he, in fact, was on a team that won an AAU National Championship and a CYO National Championship.
That's right. Two-time national champion.
That just happened.
That's right.
I
That
had
just
very
happened.
little to do with us winning.
And
Trust me.
the best
Don't
part,
you
though,
dare
is that
downplay it.
Trust me.
whenever Gibbe sees Garnett, he reminds him of how he beat him in the Elite Eight
Which
game,
is
and he has a
amazing.
guy in his
He might
crew,
kill me.
his Ostertag crew, who has the highlights of that game on his phone at the
Ready.
ready.
At the
Unreal.
ready. Everywhere he
Gibbe,
goes.
relentless.
And like probably 4 or 5 times a year, you just run into Garnett and you're ready,
Yeah,
which
you're
is
ready.
amazing that
Ready.
you're in those circles so often.
30.
I think he told a story about it
enjoy-
on Kimmel.
I know. It's incredible. The next level is coming up next. We're back on Monday. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great weekend. Cleveland Browns Daily 8:50.